Hello, hello. So, good night, everyone. So, welcome to episode 40 of Teh Tarik With Walid, to this impromptu episode. So, I thought it's worth discussing the hot topic that came out of Section 377A. I just wanted to say and affirm what PM said, right? Because there are many other issues that the country is facing. And Section 377A is just one of it. And there were many important announcements that were made as well. But having acknowledged that, I'm gonna ignore what he said and just focus on Section 377A. I myself love some of the announcements, especially the masks in schools. I thought that should have gone long ago, but I'm happy and I'm celebrating that. But today it's about Section 377A, and this is how it's gonna go. I'm just gonna speak for a while, then after that I'm just gonna add. Anyone who wants to come on, just send me a request, and then you can come on and I'll ask you some thoughts on Section 377A just for a few minutes, and then you can leave, and then we can go on to the next person. There is a match at 11:30. I mean, we can extend beyond 11:30. Hi, Constance, Connie, and we can extend beyond 11:30 if there are more people. Okay, so I just wanted to say from the outset, I just wanted to lay my biases on the table, so that, you know, in the name of intellectual honesty. So I personally, I am a Muslim, so I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, right? So I do believe that. At the same time, I also believe that a secular state should not be interfering in the realm of marriage. So I am very comfortable with the repeal of Section 377A. So even though for me personally, I should retain the right to decide for myself what is moral and what is not. So that's the belief system I have personally, and it's the way I see it. It's like an analogy. I don't know whether it's an appropriate analogy, but the analogy I would give is this, right? In terms of working within the secular state. So I think drinking alcohol is not allowed. It's not permissible in my faith, according to my belief system, right? But I don't think the state should tell and compel people to not. A secular state should compel people to not drink alcohol. So that's the analogy I would make. So I just wanted to put my biases on the table, and whether you accept, whether you don't, that's fine. So you guys are free to come on and share your thoughts and challenge me as well. So another thing that I wanted to say was, this year's National Day rally and last year's National Day rally, right? If you were to look at it politically, right, you can say that it is a masterclass in compromise, I suppose. Whether you agree with the contents of what was being said. So last year, if you guys remember, so there is no such thing as Chinese privilege, and you guys know my thoughts on that. I've done many episodes on that. So the PM said there's no such thing as Chinese privilege, and then he goes on to list the traits of Chinese privilege, essentially, right? So it's always a political balancing act, right? It's a balancing act between, for the PM politically, for the PAP, for the government, it's a balancing act between different actors in society. So I saw it last year between quote-unquote people who are more liberal and conservative on race, which may be completely different groups to liberals and conservatives on sexuality and on LGBT issues. So this year I saw the same as well. So something was given to the liberals, and something was given to the conservatives. So the thing that was given to the liberals, the repeal of Section 377A, the thing that was given to the conservatives, that we are going to enshrine marriage in the Constitution, and it's interesting to see how this will pan out in Parliament. I think I have a few questions on that. For instance, would the people who were against repeal in the first place, would they be speaking up as well? So how would the Muslims and Christians in the ruling party, how would they think about or talk about the issue? I'm interested to see what's the angle they would take. What about the opposition? What would the Workers' Party and the PSP, how would they speak on this? I'm very interested to see. And would each of them be allowed to say their own opinions? And I'm interested to see that. Of course, just to say, Miss Hazel Pua on the last episode, she actually said she personally was for repeal as well. Okay, so morally you can think of what is right and what is wrong, and all of us have our own opinions, and I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. But politically, I think what the PM did was that essentially it was about maintaining that delicate political balance, and it's a permanent balance, right, that you always have to find, like a permanent balance, meaning that it's a permanent balancing act, right, because there will always be different moving parts, and society and societal expectations and perceptions will change. This is the largest audience I've received in quite a while. I've gotten in quite a while. So anyone wants to join the session for now? So I'll just stop for a while. If anybody wants to come on, you can just send me a request to join. Otherwise, I suppose I'll just answer the questions here. But I think it's more interesting to have people come on, and then you guys can share your thoughts. I know there are a lot of people. I mean, among the 200 plus here, I'm sure all of you have thoughts on it, right? So there is a question, Megan. Actually, you know what? So Megan said she's scared, and you know, Megan has been through a lot, especially on TikTok. Even we did an IG live where she was practically slammed the whole time, and I'm thinking that I am also a bit worried about this, you know. So because this is such a minefield that I think that I can go wrong, like with every statement that I make, there is potential to go wrong. But you know, I said, okay, let's just have an open discussion and let's see what happens. So three people have already said they are scared, or four people. So please, there's one. Abhishek is joining us. So don't get cancelled. Yeah. So I hope so. Please continue to support me. Hello, hi, Abhishek.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So I was in actually one of your ethics and civics classes. I wasn't in your class, but I saw your lectures in them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're an NTU
Yeah.
student now.
Yeah, I'm an
Yeah?
NTU student now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you wanna share your
So
thoughts?
with the repeal of 377A, right? The question is, Singapore aims to be a secular society, right? And what it means to be secular is
Secular state.
yeah, secular state. So what it means to be secular is like not caring about personal religious beliefs, but rather making law for the best, for the welfare of its citizens, right? So why do we need to be bothered with defining what a marriage is, right? Because in that aspect, it delves a lot into religion already, and a lot of cultural practices, right?
Yeah.
So if, let's say, we diverge from the traditional definition of marriage, is it such a bad idea?
Yeah. So that's a good question, right? So firstly, I would say maybe the definition of a secular state is where basically religion, the state is free from religious interference, right? Now, then you have to think of, then what about the opinions of religious people in a democracy? Should it matter as well, right? And then the answer to that is not that easy, but for me, ultimately, a secular state should not. I genuinely believe that there is no reason for a secular state to disallow gay marriage. Now, this is in spite of my personal convictions on the morality of gay marriage, right? But I have thought about it, and I struggle to find a secular reason against gay marriage, right? Now, so this, we are talking about it as a matter of principle, right? We're talking about it as a principle. But for a government, they have to think about it more than in terms of just morality and principles, right? They also have to think about societal stability, and rightly or wrongly, right? I mean, ultimately, that is a genuine political concern for them. No politician can just come in and say, oh, I'm not going to care about public opinion. I'm not going to care. So as we discover that, right, so there will always be the messiness of this. Now, I genuinely believe that a secular state shouldn't have that. But a secular state also, a truly secular state also shouldn't have a Minister of Muslim Affairs, right? Definitely. But that's sort of a a result
I
of
mean, Singapore is
historical
trying to do
circumstances.
a weird balancing
Yeah, yeah,
act
yeah, yeah.
between
So yeah, yeah. So
everything.
this, yes. So this is, and ultimately in that we will get the messiness of all this. What? But you believe that repeal is a good step?
Yeah, definitely. I I also personally believe that everyone should have their own right to decide who they marry, right? But again, like if let's say you define that marriage is between a man and a woman, then what happens to let's say gay people that you know they struggle financially, right? So there's a lot of housing grants and all that, but those are for couples, right? Traditionally, men and women.
Yeah,
So you're technically marginalizing all these people that don't necessarily want to get into the traditional definition of a marriage, right?
yeah. I
So
think that will be the next frontier of
yeah,
the battle. So
right.
before this, it was Section 377A that's gone. So the next frontier, probably even before we get to marriage, probably would be housing, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
yeah. And
So
precisely for the reasons you mentioned. So thank you.
yeah,
You are a year one student now? Oh,
I'm a year two student now. I just
year two
started year
student.
two.
Okay. So if a year
Yeah.
two student has courageously accepted the invite, I don't know what the excuse is for the rest of you. Okay. So thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you so much,
No
Abhishek.
worries.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
okay, no problem. So I'll accept Megan next. So Abhishek, can you just leave the, yeah, okay. So I'll accept Megan next. And oh, so Debbie as well. So Debbie, we have three people already. Okay, okay, good. So Megan first, and then we'll have Debbie and then Longkang Kitty. So oh, what a good audience we have today. Come on, guys. Okay. So looks like I have to stay beyond 11:30. Hi, Megan. So this is Deja
Hello.
Vu. This is our third live together. Yes.
I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared. Because
I am
I
too,
feel like
actually, but it's okay. We'll be scared together. Yeah.
no, because I feel like what I think is probably not what not a lot of people probably feel the same way, just going by what I'm seeing on my Instagram stories.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, I don't want to get cancelled again, you know. But if we go
Okay.
down together.
It's okay. Don't drag me down. Okay, yeah, should, please. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm a little bit taken aback by all the celebration on social media, just because I don't think that repealing 377A is that big of a deal. In the sense that it doesn't actually accord like people in the LGBT community any more rights than than we already kind of like had. I feel like this is more like a social cultural move than anything. Because at the end of the day, policies are not getting changed, right? Policies around like marriage, housing, family, those are what actually matter. And those are what actually allow these people in these communities to not be marginalized, right? To have the same rights that everybody does. So, I mean, I
Right.
think it's a good step. Like, no, I don't think you can really deny that it's a good step. But I also feel like it's not cause for like a huge celebration.
All right. So, Megan, would you say that from what I've heard from people from the LGBT community is why 377A mattered, even though it wasn't enforced, was because it was symbolic, and you know symbols matter, right? We have
For
the
sure.
national flag. That's a symbol, but a symbol is there because it evokes something, right? So it's symbolic.
I
So I
agree.
guess that's why. Yeah.
I don't think that it doesn't matter at all. I'm just saying that I think people need to be a little bit more critical that the repeal of 377A doesn't mean like, oh, okay, let's all celebrate, like the government is finally changing their mind. Because in fact, I mean, maybe this is a pessimistic view, but I kind of feel like this is like what you said, right? A balancing act. There are a lot of implications for elections, for example, when doing this allows them to kind of like appease both sides.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, anything that the government does has implications for elections, or they have the elections in mind. So I feel like we need to like also take that into consideration. And you know what PMD said about how they worry that, you know, if they change the policies, that this will encourage more like aggressive and divisive activism. Again, it just makes me question, like, I mean I know why, but it's like, just why is this like such a deep-seated fear
Right.
any sort of like social movement or any sort of debate.
Right. Okay, interesting. So that's a good question as well, right? So how much should be the fear? So I remember. So I need to confess, right? I'm not confess. I mean, I do come with straight privilege as well, right? So probably I'm not the right person to be commenting on this. But I remember the Chinese privilege debate, right? So one of the concerns was, oh, the more you push this, right, the more people will react to this. Now, and I thought, right, so what, right? So what? So on one part of me, so what? Like if it's the truth, it's the truth, right? But on the other part of it, right? Not that I agree with it, but I understand what people who are disagreeing with me were saying. Like ultimately, we share the space with them, right? So whether I like what they say or whether I do not like what they say, so it still matters, you know. I feel that I don't want it to, but it does, you know, just realistically. So maybe that was what the PM was talking about, just from a real politic point of view, not from a moral point of view, you know, just from a real, yeah. So would you buy that?
I mean, I wouldn't dismiss it completely, but at the end of the day, I still feel that even though they claim that, you know, we are like, there are some social cultural shifts, I think at the end of the day, like the things that motivate like the PAP still very much remain the same.
Right.
And
yeah. So that goes absolutely to what Irfan is saying. By the way, there are a lot of questions.
I was just about to mention his comment.
Yeah. That goes to what Irfan is saying, right? So, will this be a divisive issue electorally? I think no. I know Sean says that this is angering both sides, but I think if you look at, it does seem to me. I mean, it's very preliminary, but it does seem that probably it appeases both sides enough to not let this be the most important issue in the election. And where would the people who are against it go? For the conservatives, at least, I don't see conservatives going anywhere else or voting based on this, because what would the Workers' Party say? The Workers' Party probably will not say, oh, let's keep this or whatever it is, right? They would probably go with this as well, with the PAP. So I do not see electorally it being such an important issue.
I agree. I mean, I think like this issue of the 377A for most people across, you know, different age groups, different like economic standings, for example, this hasn't been a key issue, right? For voters, it's always like the bread and butter issues. But I do think that I mean, I don't think it will be a key issue for the elections, but I do think that it helps to push the needle a little bit for people who might be, you know, like the middle ground, right? The middle ground of people who are like, oh, I agree with certain things that PAP do, but I don't agree that they haven't like done anything about 377A.
Right. So you do think it will affect some votes then?
I think it will. I think it turns
for the PAP, you mean, or
PAP's
against the
favor.
PAP?
No, I think it turns the tides in PAP's favor.
Oh, really?
I think so. I think people who are hesitant to, you know, people who like do like throwaway votes, like, oh, I don't really want the opposition, but I just don't want PAP to feel like they're
Yeah.
So I feel like this is like a good move for the PAP, because then
Right.
it makes them seem like, oh, they're listening to us.
Right. Okay. So especially with the younger crowd, I can imagine that this would go down pretty well with the younger crowd.
I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. Which is why I feel that people, I mean, what I'm seeing is people on social media, so people my age, a little bit older, a little bit younger. That's why I think that they need to be a lot more critical with like what is being promoted here, right? That this 377A is not that, it's cause for celebration, yes, but it's not that big of a move when we are talking about the ways that politicians like look at us socially or like culturally, or more importantly, like what does this mean for like our policies? Because that's what matters the most, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Megan. Any final thoughts on this?
No final thoughts. Looking forward to listening to
Oh, thank you so much. I think we got through that all right, Megan. I don't think you got us cancelled.
Hopefully nobody's like screen recording and then getting ready to upload on TikTok. Yeah, look at these two.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Always appreciate it, Megan. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye. So there are 5 people in line, and I will go through them chronologically, or in the order that they send the request. But there are just some comments here that I feel I need to address first. So the first is by Constance Singham, and if Constance Singham comments, you have to address it. So who decides what is moral? And that's a great question, right? So for me, as I said, for me, my morality is determined by my own faith, right? But then there is a question: why should the secular state subscribe to a particular religion's version of morality? I agree. The secular state shouldn't. So I personally think the secular state shouldn't. But I also think the secular state shouldn't. It shouldn't reach a point. It hasn't, of course, but it shouldn't reach a point where religious folks are told that, oh, you cannot have this idea of morality even, right? And we can discuss whether that fear is founded or otherwise. But that is a fear on the part of some religious folks. There's a comment here by Mariam. Can you address if conservatives would be okay towards a civil union? I don't know whether the conservatives would be okay, but my suspicion is they would be more okay with civil union than a marriage, than gay marriage. But also, I think the whole battle will start all over again. I think after this, after 3778, the next one will be for housing. The whole battle will fight between liberals and conservatives. After that, civil union and so on. Or maybe it's together as well. Let me just too many comments. So I'll just add. I think Debbie came in first. Debbie, so I'll add you. So please, no pressure. Okay. So Debbie is a PPGA student. Oh, okay. Hello, hi. Oh, are you outside?
Hello, yes, I'm outside.
Okay, yes.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can.
Though?
Yeah, can, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. What do you have to say, Debbie?
I think I just wanted to bring a little bit more like hope and idealism into this conversation.
Oh, wonderful.
Even
That's
though,
exactly what I was looking for.
okay, firstly, I think that this just shows that change is not impossible, and I think that there's something that is still worth like taking note of. And secondly, I think that I thought the move was very smart of our leaders because they sneakily put in a lot of like caveats, like changing other laws elsewhere, right? In order to like change this one. And I don't know, I just feel that if we are scared, like if we have reason to be scared to talk about this, then maybe and probably our leaders are also pretty scared, I would think. That's why they have like so many, like they need to do so many caveats and whatnot.
So for us, where the stakes are so much lower, and yet we are scared to have this conversation because we may be pissing off people, right? So all the more for the government. Also, therefore, you see this balancing act as reasonable, while seeing it as a win for younger people and liberals.
I think I would say that I don't know whether it's like completely a win. Yeah. But I would encourage our leaders to think more like openly outside the box perhaps and be braver in backing their decision, because there's a lot of possibilities that this like can bring. And I think it is also worth thinking. Okay, wait. Yeah. I think it's worth thinking about like what is the goal behind all this. For example, like one main point that they keep on raising is the family unit. So what purpose does like the family unit serve currently, and is it working? Is there like other ways that we can imagine this that might promote like, I don't know, the birth rate, for example? Like there's like technology has become so advanced that
what has the birth rate got to do with this? What has the birth rate got to do with this discussion?
I don't know, but that's just one of the arguments that is commonly thrown around.
Yeah, it's one of the arguments that is made, but I don't think the government makes that argument because it's a poor argument, right? Because whether gay marriage is legal or not, it's not as if if it's legal, suddenly LGBT people become straight or something, right? So I feel like that's not a good argument. It is an argument made by conservatives, I agree, but I don't think that's a good argument against legalization, right? Would you agree with that?
Against legalization, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I mean, to be fair to the government, they have never brought up that, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Or at least not
But
recently. Yeah.
I feel like it's quite implicit in the
Oh, you
way that
think
they
so?
say family unit. I think a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Or at least like
Interesting.
that is their way of like appeasing the conservative crowd, right?
Yeah.
Because that
So
is
that's
what like the
interesting, right?
conservative crowd would have
I
gotten
think
from that
I think
message.
it's the other one, right? Probably. I think
Oh,
it's I think so. I mean the government is not a daft government, right? So I do think that
yeah,
they know
they can do
probably.
IVF, but what?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. As in, I think it's probably the maintaining of the maintenance of the family unit. I think that is largely due to appeasing the conservatives. You know, the
Yeah,
PAP compromise. Yeah.
yeah.
So what's the vibe on the ground amongst your crowd? You know, the younger people.
Um, I was talking to Wei Ting.
Oh, hello, waiting.
And she raised a
Yes.
point which I thought was very good also, which is that if the government's aim is to strengthen Singapore's social fabric, then we will need, like, we will need better policies in place to do so. Like, it's not the first time that Singapore has passed, it's not the first time that our leaders have, like, asserted their stance on a topic and
Okay.
led the nation on that topic. So why is this something
Right.
that
Okay.
they
So
have to
this is
cover on?
this. Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. Right. So why? I mean, this is a government that is not afraid to take the lead. In fact, PM Lee said that right at the end as well. Right.
Oh,
So why go to public opinion for this? Right. It's because ultimately it's about real politics. Right. So you need to be firm on some issues that you genuinely like have strong ideological conviction on, but on the others that you do not really have strong ideological conviction on, you can sort of pander a bit, right? And it tells us this is an issue that either way, for or against, they don't really have too strong an ideological conviction on. I think that's why.
and rightly so, because they are secular government, rightly so, right?
Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Any final words, Debbie?
Oh no, that's all.
Waiting.
Thank you.
No. Thank you for coming
And
on. Okay. See you guys in a
Okay.
few days. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
How do I like go?
Yeah, just leave. I think you leave. Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so I think I have 4 more people in line. So Amir Mirza asked, I wonder how the decision came to be. What was the process? Who in cabinet was or was not involved? Well, you can assume it's a cabinet decision, I think. Of course, in cabinet, I mean, everybody gets a say. Obviously, I mean, some people are more powerful than others, but I'm sure it's a cabinet decision nonetheless. In the long run, isn't this bad for the PAP? Because after repeal, wouldn't LGBTQ people go for legalizing marriage? But for now, the PAP doesn't seem to want to budge. Well, the PAP doesn't budge not because they have a strong ideological conviction, as I said. I think it is really about public sentiment. And I am quite convinced if they are sure that public sentiment is maybe 10 years' time, I don't know, maybe earlier, if they are fully in support of gay marriage, I am quite convinced that's where the PAP would go. And yes, it's going to be enshrined in the constitution, but let's face it, this is Singapore, right? It's not as if it's so difficult to change the constitution or anything. So Longkang Kitties sent me a request, so I'll accept them. I think there are 4 more people. Yes.
Hi, Walid. I'm good.
Yeah, so
Thank
are
you.
are you finally gonna make good on your promise and get me cancelled?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Well, I would like to try tonight, but I will give you the option. There's a softball topic I would like to approach, and then there's a cancelable topic I would like to approach.
Okay. Softball first.
Okay. So maybe maybe now I ask you some questions because I'm genuinely curious as to like.
So you are changing the format of this. So you are asking.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But what do you think Or how do you feel about the conservatives, the reaction to this thing where, you see on social media, they are reacting quite negatively and quite vehemently? I just like to hear your thoughts on it. I can understand why they did, why it's like that, but I would like to hear
Okay, okay. So you're asking why? Yeah. So I think a lot of conservatives see this as a slippery slope kind of thing, and I think the Catholic, I think the Archbishop, I think the statement today, he mentioned that it's not about 377A per se. I'm paraphrasing, okay? So it's about basically they're worried that what has happened in the West, where it reaches one day where they cannot even say that gay marriage is not moral according to their own faiths. So I think there is that. I think there is that that fear, whether it's right or it's wrong, but there is that fear that I think maybe liberals do not appreciate that concern. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I think that that concern is there for sure. Yeah. So Megan said, "Be careful. This is how they get you." Sure. Yeah. This is true. This is true. This is very sneaky. He starts off with a question.
I'm not part of the ISD, don't worry.
Okay, carry on. Yeah. Any other? Yeah. What was the hard question? Yeah.
Okay. So in this, in the light of all this, right? Do you think it makes sense for us to then have policies that is based on some sort of like reductionist ideology? So I'll give you a direct example so you can kind of like compare it one for one, right? So when we talk about marriage between man and a woman, so the idea is, or at least the old idea was that we did it because they would take care of the kids that would be birthed from this marriage.
Okay.
That society don't end up picking up the bill for someone else's kids because the man refused to take care of it, or that, because it's more difficult to identify the father of the child. So we just kind of like put them into this relationship and we bind them socially and legally so that they are the one who have to pick up the tab and not the rest of us, not the rest of society. So is there like a sort of like a compelling reason now that you think more than ever to approach policy with this kind of like fairly reductionist views in terms of things like marriages, adoption, HDB, so on and so forth?
So that is a legal issue, isn't it? Don't you think?
It could also be a moral one, like in terms of making the arguments for it. It's like it'll be a mix of topics lah. But I'm just curious as to
So I think we have to, first of all, I think we have to understand what is the fundamental belief upon which society should be governed, right? So is it choice, or is it other things? So if it's choice, then I think there will come a different set of prescribed policies.
Seems like it's choice and duty, right?
Yeah. So that's why. Then that's different, right? So I think if it's even if it's duty, right? So wouldn't you say that? I don't quite follow. So if it's in
so there is a moral duty in the sense of, okay, let's say we prescribe men and women to be married so that they can take care of the kids. It's not based on love. We've never based marriage on love, right? This was never the idea.
I don't know what you're
like
talking about. As in, my marriage is not like that.
But I mean
I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying. I think marriage can be based on more than love as well. It can be based on responsibility as well. But I guess why can't that happen with gay couples? Why can't you have the same level of responsibility?
You could.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you can't. So
yeah. So I think that argument probably would hold for straight or gay couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So ultimately, I really believe that this is about maintaining the societal compromise between liberals and conservatives. I think in the Malay speech, right, PM Lee mentioned that nobody will ever get everything they want, right? And it's interesting, he also didn't mention this in the Chinese speech, but only in the Malay speech, right? So,
Yeah,
because it's
I
clear.
saw his Facebook post about
Yeah. So it's quite clear that it was going to be Muslims and Christians who are most opposed to it. I think there will be some Buddhists and Taoists who are opposed to it, but I don't think it's at the same level as the opposition from the Christians and Muslims. So I think in a true compromise, nobody is truly happy. In a true political compromise, right? So again, it's not about the morality of it. So from the PM's perspective, he's probably thinking this is a political compromise at this point in time. And also, there is an added dimension, right? He is making the decision now, right, to free the next, and he has some political capital. He's freeing Lawrence Wong from this decision for the foreseeable future, right? So that's another one. So he's taking it on himself, and I think he has made the calculation. It wouldn't hurt them too much electorally, but probably Lawrence Wong does not have enough. DPM Wong does not have enough clout to handle this at this point in time. So he's taking it. So I think there is that dimension as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just have one last thing. After
Sure.
I'll just head
Sure.
off. So do you think, right, in let's say 20 years' time, when the Zoomers they come into power, and then they'll look at this point in history, and then they'll say something like, they'll say something like, they'll say something along the lines of, oh, look, the PAP has this history of being homophobic because even though they repealed 377A, they didn't allow for gay marriage. This is like 20 years or 30, 40 years later. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they will say that. I mean, and I think it's also, it's slightly, I not about this specifically, but I think in general, I think it is a bit arrogant to judge society 50 years ago through the lens of today.
We're doing it right now all the time, right? So this
I mean, like Friends, right? People are saying like for all sorts of things, and I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair, but yeah. So to answer your question, yes, there will be people who will be saying that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
all I have.
Thank you so
very
much,
Walid.
I hope. I think that went pretty okay. I hope.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
There are so many questions. Sorry if I missed. Okay. And is it true? Man City is up 1? Oh, okay. Hi, Arun. Yeah. So Ismail, don't distract me. Yeah. Okay. Hello. Yeah. So he's writing. No. Ismail is distracting me with the live updates. Yeah. But I appreciate the live updates. Yeah. So carry on, Arun. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Actually, I already wanted to ask you a question earlier, but I think Megan asked a question that sort of very overlaps with this. So I've sort of broken down my thoughts into sort of 3 sort of points or questions, right? So the first one is, what do you think is the political cost that the PAP faces from this, as well as what sort of actions you think they have taken to minimize this cost? So political cost, I guess, also sort of translates into like support from the electorate and all that. I personally think that they may even come off away from this with even more support, because in the speech, I might be getting this wrong, but immediately after the sentence where he said that Section 377A would be repealed, right? The next 2-3 paragraphs are all about how they're going to enshrine marriage in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So, I wonder your thoughts on that. The second one was, or should I go one by one?
No, you can carry on. Yeah, carry on with the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the second one is how you think they have maneuvered themselves to place them and leave their options open as this conversation continues on for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So my thoughts on this is, again, this is very superficial, but by them being the ones who are enshrining marriage in the Constitution, as how we've seen in other countries, right, an argument can now be made by not necessarily them, but conservative supporters of them, that, it's the PAPs who are the ones who are, standing in between marriage being defined in this way and marriage being redefined, or,
so
becoming a laissez-faire approach.
As opposed to 377A, where they can say it's a colonial legacy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because it is more of there's accountability here, right? A direct action being taken by them. Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And
Okay,
also how difficult it will be for this enshrining of marriage in the constitution to change,
right.
because like they said, it will require 2/3 of the votes of the MP,
Yeah,
which means that you would either need a situation where the PAP somehow decides to, all of them are still largely in power, they decide to
yeah,
change their stances, or opposition parties significantly increase in the number of seats that they have, and then
yeah,
there's this sort of coalition voting sort of thing that happens where they get not just PAP MPs but opposition
yeah,
MPs as well,
yeah,
members from other parties. And yeah, so wanted your take on that, right? And
yeah.
then the last one that I have was, how do you think this affects the overturn window in Singapore?
What do you mean?
So, if I'm getting my facts right, the overturn window is basically a sort of spectrum of topics or things that can be spoken about in a society in any one point in time, without incurring significant social or political sort of cost or fallout.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's a lot, man. So I think I may have to miss the second half also. This is the case.
You already
So
said
okay.
it's not a problem.
Okay. So first one, political fallout. I think there will not be significant, because first of all, it's quite some time away from the elections. Second of all, as I said, where would they go, right? I doubt that they would go. The Conservatives would go. Really, they can go elsewhere. And in fact, I think Megan is right. I think they would have won some of the more center-left liberals on this particular issue. So definitely. So now the third question, right? The third question. So does this affect what can be discussed? Well, I think LGBT issues could have been discussed already. I mean, many years ago already. I don't think this was it, right? Maybe
Okay, wait.
maybe the
Let me
2000 debate. Yeah. Carry on. Yeah.
wait. Let me sort of like make the question a bit more narrow then,
Yeah.
right? So, how do you think this will affect how other either current or aspiring politicians or MPs from talking about this? Because whilst I mean the
Ah.
PAP in general, a lot of them have stayed away from it. I think the only Bayam King and then one of the PAP MPs who came talking out this year. And stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I think in 2007, when the debate happened, there were a lot of uh, MPs who actually spoke on the issue, right? So I think you are right. So definitely now it opens up the discussion even more. Even before this, you had seen there were sometimes where different members of the party articulated different opinions, and I think that should be the case, by the way, right? On these issues, I think even the opposition should allow different MPs to just articulate their own voices. I think now for the PAP, this has sort of given a strength to that, as in a permission for people to actually articulate their opinions. However, knowing the PAP, the whip is still the whip, and party unity is still party unity.
Yeah.
So probably they will still not go against whatever is the official policy, right? And even if they do, they will be very, very measured in it, right? Now, the second issue, right? The second issue, which I think is the ultimate point here, the second question that you posed. Ultimately, what matters is public opinion, right? So even if it requires 2/3 majority, whatever the composition, 60% PAP, 40% opposition, or even 60% WP, 40% PAP, right? If 80% of public want gay marriage will happen anyway. That's what I feel. So it's not about, and some people, I was discussing with some people, this makes it harder for gay marriage too. Well, not really, right? If the overwhelming majority of, yes, harder, but it's not super hard. If the overwhelming majority of Singaporeans want it to happen, it will happen anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
I
very
don't know
interesting.
whether I answered your questions, Harun.
Yeah, I think it sort of did, but I think I was also curious about like how wait, what was it? So like, how do you think, in your opinion, right? How do you think the this factors into the next election? So I guess this is a little bit about Megan's question, a little bit about like I wanted to expand on that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
About the time between elections in the electoral cycle that this is
Yeah.
happening, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of
So
in the midpoint. There's still, like you said, about 2.5 years or so.
right.
What do you
So
think?
yeah. So I think it probably wouldn't be high on the agenda because don't forget there are things which are really gonna affect the elections in a more significant way that will happen. And that would be the GST. I think the GST over the next couple of years will be increased 1% and 1%. So I think the cost of living would still be a priority, right? And then we don't know what will happen to the WP's court cases. That would probably matter as well, and matter more than this as well. And also during the hustings, right? Nobody could have predicted what happened in the hustings that shifted public opinion against the PAP in a significant way, as they eventually admitted, right? So there's still a long way to go, but I do not see at this point in time, I do not see this issue really figuring too much as a decider in the next election.
Right.
Yeah.
As you said before, which makes sense because usually social issues don't tend to matter as much as, or at least weigh as much.
Yes, and that's interesting, right? Because 2020 was for the first time where we saw maybe a social issue where an issue of justice mattered more significantly than elsewhere. Can we expect this trend to continue? And can we expect this trend to continue when there's rising cost of living and all of these competing tensions, right? And if it matters, right, for which groups of people, because these things would matter differently for different groups of people, right? For how many people would this be a deciding factor? There will be for some, but is it a significant amount of the electorate?
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much, Aaron, for agreeing. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. All right. So I think I'm just giving up on the questions that are here because I missed so many already. Well, let me see. So if you want, so so I'll just accept Jungan or Jamie on, and let's see what he has to say. Thank you so much, guys, for attending this. Hello,
Hi,
Jamie.
Prof.
How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Okay. Yes. So, what are your thoughts?
I actually don't think mine is specifically about 377A, but it's more about the whole National Day rally and how it went about. So I feel like
so you want to shift the topic of discussion? Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Carry on.
Yeah. So like the first part that I picked up on was like how PM Lee was like taking the whole beating about the bush, like trying to talk around like why they're gonna repeal it and whatnot, and then quickly changing the topic after that. I feel like he was trying to it sounds like a kid who did something wrong and trying to explain to the parents, so like trying to explain it more and more, and then after he just changed the topic quite quickly. I think ultimately what you said earlier was what I was trying to get at, which was like he has this political capital to do it, which I think leads into my next point on how I think like they're just preparing for the next PM's sort of government, like a more open government where they are more open to talking about more topics that I think other Singaporeans would have thought that was a red tape. Because I think like earlier, I think a lot of students said that like they were scared to like participate and whatnot. So like I think this was considerably part on the edge of the red tape that we talked about in our lectures. So like I'm not sure like whether if it's trying to say like this red tape is now going. Then the second part which I wanted to talk about was the clapping part, the scene where I messaged you on earlier, which I was told not to read too much into it. I'm not sure if
No. I saw that as well. So basically what Jamie texted me was I was actually also waiting to see, and it's true that maybe half of the audience clapped, and the camera only panned to those who clapped. I wanted to see who didn't clap. So I mean, in the audience itself, it was quite divided, right? And maybe that's a metaphor for Singapore society as well, right? As in, there will be people who are not really too pleased about the repeal as well. Now, so to your first point, right, Jamie, I'm not sure whether the analogy holds, right? A parent who's answering to the children, a child who's answering to the parent, right? Because he is the parent here. I see this is the parent who's trying to manage squabbles and quibbles between siblings. That's how I see him actually, not the other way around, right? So he's trying to tell the older brother, right? Yes, I'm giving the younger brother, younger sister something, right? But don't worry, there's something for you as well. I didn't forget about you. That's how I saw it. Would you think that's a better analogy or?
Yeah, I think the whole part of it was not to like make anyone feel especially hurt by it, I guess. Like trying to talk about both
Right.
sides, you know, trying to recognize both sides the entire way around.
Right,
Yeah, so I
right.
do
Yeah,
agree with
yeah.
your analogy, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how do you personally feel about it? If you would like to share, of course, yeah.
I think ultimately I don't have a strong opinion on this. I think that ultimately like all that we said is basically all the nuance that is had on the that I have on the matter, you know, like ultimately if it doesn't affect me, then do I really need to care about it? In the sense that like if
Oh,
I don't have a strong opinion on it, nor does it really affect me, then do I need to really care like there's a I mean I am happy for the people that are having a repeal, you know, given that, you know, like they wanted to repeal, you know, it's a symbol and it will be a symbol of progress, you know, like a more progressive society, a leftward society. So like I am happy for them, but at the same time I do not really have a view on this and I
okay.
don't yeah. But
Right.
it's more about the political implication that I wanted to talk about, the clapping, you know.
Right. So and you would think the the political implications are what in this case?
Like I think like the immediate thought was that like I had time to think of it. So like my immediate thought was that like, oh, this is gonna be quite a fallout, but it's gonna be far from the elections. But then having thought about it, this is actually somewhat gaining favor for them, as we said earlier in this whole video, you know, like ultimately they're gonna attract also the younger center left leaning people, you know. And also
Yeah.
if I think about it, right, it also starts setting up a narrative of how Lawrence Wong's government will be more open, you know, more
Progressive, yeah.
yeah. And I mean like they're ultimately using him as the capital in a sense. So it's like the timeline you know, like
Right.
succession timeline, you know, like we're gonna put this here so that, you know, like by the time it gets to you, you know, you don't get the sting of it, but at the same time you get the impression that your government is more
Yeah.
open, more listening.
I think that's smart. I think if they wanted to do repeal, probably it had to be done before Lawrence Wong took over.
Yeah.
At least many years after he took over, right? I think probably he
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do that immediately. So I do think you're right on that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
but I actually wanted to like get your views on the clapping though. Like what do you think about it?
Yeah, so somebody mentioned, so Mohsin mentioned that he was at the NDR and the claps when PM mentioned about the protection of marriage and current family definition was louder than the announcement of the repeal. And I think that's probably true. But you need to probably bear in mind that was an older audience also. So it really depends on where this is announced and where which segments of society are for or against, right? I can imagine if this was announced at a university audience, for instance, right? Overwhelmingly, people would be supportive of it. So yes, the claps I think indicates that society still has to iron out these issues, but I don't think we can take the claps as a sign of whose support is stronger. I think, yeah, because there's a selection bias in who attended the NDR as well.
But I think like ultimately, like on the last point that I'll talk about
yeah.
is the changing about the constitution, you
Yeah.
know. I feel like on one
Yeah.
hand, yes, they are placating the conservatives, but on the other hand, isn't it a bit scary to think that like to repeal one law they can change the constitution? Like they have the ability to do that simply because they have the super majority. But like
So somebody mentioned that as well, Jamie. So we the loving critics, we should care about the government's totalitarian powers. I mean, totalitarian would not be the right word for this, because in a totalitarian country there's no opposition and so on. But what I would say is, isn't it a bit strange to to care about the government's powers on this particular issue. Like, there have been, this is not exactly the first time that a constitution amendment has been changed or has been proposed, right? Like, we have a lot of, we have had a lot, numerous constitutional amendments, right, over the past many years. Right, we had the presidential election, for instance, the reserve presidency, the constitutional amendment, right? And also we have so many laws that are, for me, which are more restrictive in terms of freedoms, right, like POFMA and so on. So this isn't exactly the prime example of the government's overreach or whatever it is. Yeah. So as in, is it is it really a surprise that the government has? I mean, they have 2/3 majority, right? And elections have consequences, right? So, so maybe what you're saying, maybe this is a reminder of how easy it is, or a reminder of their tangible effects of their supermajority.
I think it's both, to be honest.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any final thoughts, Jamie?
Any final thoughts? No, but do you have anything to ask? Or?
No, I just wanted to know how do your friends feel about this, or have you guys gotten to discussing it already?
I mean, like some of my friends did. I mean, like there are two camps. One of it saying that it's like one step forward, 50 steps backwards. On the other hand, there are the camp that says it's baby steps forward. You know. So
okay. Yeah. I saw that
ultimately
as well. I saw that as well.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think ultimately
I saw that.
it is still quite divisive.
Right.
But I think ultimately I'd rather see it as small steps forward rather than 50 steps backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Jamie.
for having me.
Thank you. No problem.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. So I'll accept Yash. Thanks for the patience. Okay. So I'm running out of energy also, but we'll just get through this. So there's a comment by Haikal that, oh, if the government abolishes the ISA, now that's the real game changer. And I agree as well. That would be more significant, I think, in terms of being aligned to the government's own ideologies, right? That is more significant for the government. Okay. Hello, Yash.
Hi,
Hello,
Prof.
Hi. Yes. So your thoughts?
My thoughts. My light is a
Yes.
bit bright. I'm sorry, I moved here.
Okay.
My
yeah.
thoughts. I think from all the people that have come on so far, you've had quite a lot of people talking about the optimism and also some sides talking about pessimism. But I think one thing that we should start off with is thanking the people who have actually gone through the process, the activists who actually went through the pain of bringing this issue to light in the first place. So that's something that I think we should be considering when looking at this issue in the first place. I think the previous person who came on took my point, which was actually looking at the way that the speech was actually delivered, which we were talking about in the prior chair as well. The somehow brilliant way that the PAP makes landmark speeches in the most anticlimactic way, and they kind of fizzle out from the actual bombshell that they dropped, which was the persistence on staying with the GST increase, which I think not many people focused on. Everyone's talking about 3778, but they don't really focus on the fact that GST is still going to increase.
Yeah. I mean, that was significant. Actually, now that you mention it, I mean, let's just give airtime to those important issues. I thought it was very significant that the Prime Minister took a lot of time, basically to warn about foreign interference in the Chinese community. And obviously, I don't want to speak for him, but I presume he's speaking about China and the CCP's disinformation campaign, for instance, right? So I presume that's what he's talking about, which is why it was specific in Chinese. And also the mask thing, that's a huge thing. I think it's about time. No, the GST is another one. And then right at the end was about DPM Lawrence Wong, right? So that's another significant one where he was saying, like, give him the support basically that he got as well. So I think those were significant moments as well. But of course, 3778 is the most sexy topic, right? And especially amongst the younger crowd, I think this is the one that will be the most
gets the
prominent.
click.
Yeah. Sorry?
It definitely gets the clicks.
Yeah, definitely, right? And I think a lot of people will. It will dominate discussions for the next few days, more so than the other issues, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So your own thoughts, other than the way it was communicated on the
My
issue
thoughts-
itself. Yeah.
I think it is a good thing. It is a baby step. It is a good thing that the government has decided to take a step in the right direction by being brave and by doing their own research and going on the ground, listening to what people have to say. But there's also a hope, or a little bit of hope still left in there, in the sense that they have put in very strict safeguards to protect the institution of marriage by changing the constitution. But I think, as I was having a discussion with a senior a little while ago, he mentioned this one line to me that resonated, and he said that not everything that can be changed doesn't necessarily mean that it can't necessarily be unchanged. Just because you can change something and put it in frame it in a certain way doesn't mean it can't be unchanged. The same way that 3777A was put in place by the British has now been repealed. So this is something that we should take into consideration when looking at the idea that marriage is now enshrined as one man and one woman.
So I think thanks for that, Yash, because I wanted to address what Arun said earlier also. So now the PAP cannot hide behind. He asked just now. The PAP cannot hide behind because this was something they did. They introduced this in the constitution. But what I would say is there are many British legacies that we have done away with. Some we have kept, but there are many British legacies that we have done away with. And I don't think the people thought that, oh, let's let the PAP get away with it because it's a colonial legacy anyway. I think people generally let the PAP get away with it because they didn't feel it was an important enough issue. But now the tide has turned, and that's why the PAP has also reacted in that particular way. By people, I mean generally. I don't mean there will always be a subset. Yeah, carry on.
It leads to another point, Prof, where we agree that we have laws in place, and laws serve as a basis of keeping the society that we have bounded by a social contract, or bounded by, in this sense, a legal contract. So if we are inheriting something that came from a colonial past, or is something that came from a previous administration, is it truly ours? And does it truly represent the society that it is meant to govern and provide a series of...
But why do we think like that? The history of humanity is a history of building on people's progress, right? Yeah. So I mean, if you say, oh, just now I got a message in one of the my chat groups, right, which I thought was a little weird. Oh, this is the last remnant of colonialism. That finally we are a free country, Merdeka. They say, what are you talking about? What about Parliament? Did that come from Temasek or what? Like this idea. Like there are many things that came from the British that we chose to continue, which are good things, right? So just because it came from, it's neutral. Where it came from is neutral. It's the essence that makes it good or bad, right? Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to remove everything.
Exactly.
But the fact that now we are looking back and we are trying to see things for what they actually are and whether they actually fit in our current context. I think that's a good step that we are doing. So this is good. It's fantastic. And I think the more that we take a more introspective look into our laws, the way that we carry ourselves, the way the legislation is out there to serve the needs of Singaporeans, I think this is something that's very important. And the more that we do, the more constructive conversation that we have on this, the better it will be for society.
Oh, I feel like this is a second National Day rally, man.
No, I think very carefully about what I say. It's a very sensitive topic.
Thank you so much, Josh. Any final comments? Yes, thank you so much. Okay. All right, thank you so much. Okay. So I have one more, I think. Let me see.
How to leave it?
Sharvin. Oh yeah, just leave it. Yeah. Just the X, I think. So Sharvin, I will accept Sharvin's one. Yeah, Teh Tarik 2.0. Okay, so this is midnight already. So if there are people who still want to come on, please feel free. Just send me a request. I'll oblige. Okay.
Yeah, hi,
Hello,
Prof.
hi, Sharvin. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
You want to
hi.
introduce yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I was actually a PPGA student. But I think when you joined NTU, I was in year three, and then because of that, like I never actually took any of your mods, but I
Ah,
kept
okay.
like hearing about you from like juniors
Okay.
and all and everyone else. So yeah, yeah.
Okay, good things
Um,
hopefully. Yeah. Carry on. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I guess I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on this. I think two speakers ago, someone mentioned that he's been seeing some opinions that this is a baby step forward, and then other people saying that this is one step forward, but then 15 step back.
Yeah.
And I think I fall very firmly into the group that thinks that this is one step forward and 15 steps back. Um,
Because
because I think in the past 1 to 2 weeks, really a lot of the arguments that we've seen coming from the more religious groups is essentially that they are okay with repeal as long as marriage is enshrined in the constitution, and essentially they got exactly what they wanted lah. And obviously, that is not the position of all religious people out there. And obviously,
yeah.
even with this,
Yeah.
there are still going to be people that are disappointed or
Yeah.
angry even at what just happened. But I guess the way I see it is that the repeal of 377A is very much a symbolic move
Okay.
because, even before this, 377A wasn't actively enforced and it doesn't actually equate to any practical difference on the ground, right? I mean, as to what people do behind closed doors, it doesn't actually make a difference. But then, on the flip side, when you talk about like enshrining something like man-woman marriage in the constitution, it makes a very big difference to what happens down the road in terms of where do we go from here. So as you mentioned earlier, I also agree with you that there, from a secular perspective, there really is no reason why you should be preventing gay marriage, for example. So from that perspective, when you enshrine something like man-woman marriage in the constitution, it makes it a lot harder to then repeal it. And yes, I do
Why is that the
understand what.
case? Why is it
Yeah, because
harder if the constitution in Singapore changes all the time anyway?
because okay, you see, I do understand what some people have already mentioned that the PAP has a supermajority, they can always change it anyways. But historically speaking, the PAP does not like to be seen as backpedaling on what it has already been doing, right? And sometimes they play it off as, oh, we're listening to the ground and all that. But
Yeah.
even if some kind of huge change comes, I think it is going to take very long before they actually come up with some kind of, removing it from the constitution, for example. Because, I mean, like you mentioned earlier that, I think Yash mentioned earlier that, this thing was set up by the British, I think, in 1930s or something. I mean, it's been in the constitution for like 100 years, almost 100 years. And then even in Singapore, the last time that they discussed it in a major way in Parliament was, 15 years ago, 2007. So, honestly, knowing this, how policymakers in Singapore are, I honestly think the reaction to the argument of, we should try to bring gay marriage back into the fold. I think the reaction is going to be, we just had a very major shift recently, so we shouldn't rock the boat until a while later on. We
Okay,
should.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I agree with you. Probably it's gonna take some time because the battle will start again. But where I
Mm.
would probably disagree with you, you said the PAP is not known to backtrack from. Well, it depends on the kinds of issues. For some issues, it's willing to change its opinions on more readily. On others, it holds on to its ideological convictions a bit more. But even on those issues, right? It's never set in stone. Like for instance, the
Correct.
nurses and the hijab, the tudung last year.
Mm.
That was something that I think that was much harder to change than or I thought that was much harder to change than Section 377A, and that happened nonetheless. So again, ultimately, I go back to the point I made earlier. Ultimately, it's about public sentiment, and on this, the government, I think the PAP government doesn't really have a clear stance on this, or a strong stance, not a clear stance, a strong stance on this, and they are willing to go where the public is at. So I think if the public clearly goes against, it clearly supports gay marriage, I think that's where the government will go as well. You doubt that, or?
No, I think I guess I'm coming from the perspective that on a natural state, it should at the very baseline level, right? It should be legal, right? But of course, real politics,
Yeah.
it is very difficult to actualize that. So I think the only, practically speaking, the only way that it's going to change is from, democratically speaking, you need a very large proportion of the electorate to then become, to come out in support of removing it from the constitution. Exactly like what you said. But again, that is going to take very much longer as compared to, I think, what would have been possible if, if this didn't have been enshrined in the first place.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted because people are typing that Newcastle.
Yeah, I can see the soccer results.
Yes. So okay, it's okay. I will have to end before 12:30, so we still have some
sure.
time. Any final thoughts you wanna say? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I guess it will just be interesting to see the arguments in Parliament. I mean, I'm waiting to see whether anyone breaks away from the whip. Some interesting stuff happens. I don't think it will actually happen, but it will be interesting to watch.
So yeah. So even if they don't not support repeal, right? What their statements are on the marriage part, that's where I think you can discern what their stances are on repeal.
Because a lot of people tend to think that the PAP is like a monolith, right? And everyone has the same views. But I mean, it is for people that are more,
some issues,
I guess,
on some issues is like that, but not in all. Not in all. Yeah. So you're right.
Yeah, they do tend to have a variety. I mean, even the opposition parties, they have
absolutely
quite a variety of opinions.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
So I have one more. So Rebecca has said this. Thank you, Rebecca, for agreeing to come on. I'll just add Rebecca. Okay, so we have 17 minutes, hopefully. Hazel says she supports repeal, but what does Leong Man Wai think about it? I don't think we should ask Hazel what Leong Man Wai thinks about it, right? So might as well we ask, why don't, if that's the case, PM Lee said this, but what does Minister Masagos thinks about it, right? So you want to ask Man Wai, we want to know what Man Wai thinks about it, we have to ask Man Wai. Sorry, Rebecca. Hello. Hi, thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. Yes.
I'm scared right now, but okay. I have two things I kind of want to ask, but the first one is not cancelable at all, and the second one maybe I'm not sure. So and also I can see that some of my friends just joined, and that's very scary.
Yes. A lot of support for you. Yes.
Okay, so my first question is actually I agree with the previous person. Sorry, I didn't catch their name, but I agree with the previous person that actually it feels a little bit like a step backwards for marriage. But I was thinking about what about jobs? How about would this place a sort of stepping stone for people for PAP or just the government in general to put in more policies to support less discrimination for LGBT in getting jobs or I don't know, just in general. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think there can be a case made for that. Probably the government would say, previously also there wasn't that much discrimination anyway, right? Because Section 377. So don't forget, the repeal also came on the back of many things, right? Of the many court challenges. One of it, the court already said specifically that it cannot be enforced, right? So the court already said that. So the law was not going to be enforced. But even before that, In 2007, PMD said the government was not going to enforce it. But of course, the argument made then, I remember by a lot of people, was that, oh, there's no guarantee. Even though the PM says this, there's no guarantee. But when the court said it, then there's a guarantee already. But now the guarantee is even more. So I do think maybe there could be movements in terms of less discrimination. And I think also then you will see maybe, I don't know, maybe there will be more openly gay candidates who join the party, or maybe you'll see from the opposition as well more LGBT individuals joining or even coming out. I don't know whether it will be so soon, whether the ripple effect will be that soon, but maybe you're right. I think that's a possible argument. Yeah. So what was the thing that you wanted to get me cancelled for?
No, like I was thinking like cause like I kind of understand where like some conservatives would like talk about like how like it could be like a slippery slope, that argument, right? And I was just thinking like, cause I mean like personally I think I'm socially conservative but politically liberal. So
Oh, that's me.
so
That's my description.
uh
Yeah.
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
You read my Yuka paper, right?
Hey, you stole it from what I said in class. Now you
Yes,
wanna?
correct. Don't expose me, don't
Okay.
expose me. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was just thinking like just in general, like the way that okay, maybe not conservatives, but maybe like more like religious factions. Is that the right word? I don't know,
Factions. Yeah.
but like the definition of sin itself, I feel like it's very misconstrued in the public sphere. Like I feel like when I was talking to a friend today, I was thinking about like how like people seem to think that like if I think someone is doing like a sin, then that means like you are like a bad human being. But like that's not really exactly how I perceive sin. Like I feel like sin, personally, I guess, like it's like something that I feel that God does not want me to do. So like for me personally, because I'm Christian, I will not do it. But I feel like if someone else does it, it doesn't mean that I think that they are a bad human person, or
Yeah.
like that they are, yeah. So I feel like there's a difference between what people tend to define as sin in society versus like what I myself define as sin. Yeah, and I was thinking about like your thoughts on that, like how that might play out in society where people might get offended that I think certain things are a sin in the first place. Like,
Yeah.
just the fact that I think it's a sin. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think, and especially looking at the previous guests, I think this platform, I think it's harder to be a conservative on this platform. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, I do agree with you, and I think also, and the way I say it, all of us sins is just different types of sins, right? I hold on to the same idea as you are. So just because you do individual sins, it doesn't mean that you are because you are judged by the totality of your good and bad, right? So that's how I would see it, and I think I see it the same way as you do. So there's a comment here: morality and sin are two very different discussions. Well, it's not for religious folks, I suppose, right? So what is moral is what is determined by God, right? So for religious folks, that's what morality essentially is, right? So that is, so what is immoral would be a sin, basically, right? So now, whether that's the same as in terms of secular morality, of course not. But I think we already established that at the start. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Rebecca?
No, yeah, I agree. I just wanted to like answer Sean's question in the chat, like socially conservative versus politically liberal. I think it's the person who explained it is kind of correct, yeah. And I was thinking also like I think Walid's recent post on like the how like sin does not equal crime thing. Like I think that's what I mean by it, yeah. Like you might think certain things like you would hold yourself to certain moral codes of conduct, I guess, perhaps in your definition of morality and sin, but like for example, like I would support not discriminating against like LGBT community or like etc. And I feel like it's also in line with religion. I don't think it's not in line with religion to support and love your friends. Yes, so
Right. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. And I agree with that. And I think you look at the different types of what it means to be liberal, like so can be socially, politically, and economically as well, right? So just because you're a social conservative doesn't mean you're an economic conservative as well, or political conservative. So you can be a social conservative. So for instance, you believe there are only two genders, but you're very pro freedom of speech, for instance. So that means you're politically liberal but socially conservative, right? So and it is true that when we use the terms liberals, conservatives, right, we need to define them properly. But when discussing an issue like Section 377A, we all know what it means, right? What a liberal in this context means, right? Liberal basically supports repeal, conservative doesn't support repeal, and basically, yeah. So that's what I referring to the online discussion that you had on my post. Yeah. So I
thank you for the
think
call out. Yes.
no, I completely agree with you as well. So I think we all know what terms mean. So let's not waste time, on discussing the definition so much. Not that definitions do not matter, they matter. Yeah. So I think Sean earlier said that the government stance was similar to what I always criticize in class, which is sitting on the fence. Well, the government is not writing an academic paper, right? The government is managing society. So unfortunately or fortunately, they have to maintain these different aspirations and demands of people, even if they may seem unfair, right? So I thought last year when the PM said Chinese privilege was baseless, I thought that was unfair. But do I understand why he said that? Of course I do. Of course I do, because partly also because he was giving something to that would probably not sit well with some conservatives, right? Like the tudong for the nurses. So he had to give something also to them, right? So it's always a delicate balancing act. Yeah.
Actually, while we're on that, like just a really small comment. But I
Sure.
was just thinking, like, like how you said it was like the Chinese privilege is a hoax thing was like in the Chinese speech,
Oh, hoax,
right? But
baseless. Yeah.
sorry, baseless. Sorry, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, correct. It was in
Now I
the.
get
It was.
both. No, but actually, like I was talking to a friend about it, and then like the friend actually mentioned that like the Chinese word that they used in that speech was like actually like because languages have connotations attached to it.
Yeah.
So like the connotation attached to that particular like phrase that they used was more like institutionalized privilege. So like perhaps maybe he was trying to say like Chinese doesn't have like
No,
institutionalized
that's exactly what he meant. That's exactly
right,
what he meant.
yeah.
You're right.
So
That's
yeah.
exactly what he meant, because he went on to explain that as well. Right?
Mm.
But what I would note is in the official PMO translation of that speech, the term Chinese privilege was used for that particular phrase. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
you're right. That was what he meant. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so
Okay.
final word to you, Rebecca. So this is the no more guests already. It's 1 hour, 1.5 hours already. I feel like I'm flying already. Yeah. So final word, anything you wanna say? Yeah.
No, but
Okay.
I like how you wanted to end at 11:30 and it's 12:30. But okay. Yes.
Okay, no, thank you for giving some balance to this discussion as well. Okay, and thank you everyone for joining. So I'll be uploading this, and one of the best audiences I've had so far. Okay, so thank you and good night. Thank you, Rebecca. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.